As promised, joining me now is legendary journalist and associate managing editor of The Washington Post, Bob Woodward. Bob, it's great to see you. That movie is so good. So it was just a reminder of what a moment in history that was. But I was so excited to talk to you for a million reasons. I've read all your books, but also you've covered 16 secretaries of defense. I think I got that right. I know I said that earlier.
Yes.
And I know we talked about Secretary Hegseth. He wasn't the secretary then when we last spoke in November. And there's so much that's happened since then. You know so well about the functioning of the Pentagon and what impacts things. Is there anything that surprised you? And what concerns you the most about what you've seen in terms of his leadership there?
You need to address the question and think about what is the Secretary of Defense in our system.
Yeah.
The Secretary of Defense is Deputy President for War. Mm-hmm. So you want that position to be filled by somebody who's very serious, very competent, very focused on that mission, protecting the homeland, mm-hmm. protecting the United States. And having known and dealt with 16 of them, there is, you can have somebody like General Mattis, mm-hmm. who was probably the most serious person to ever work in Washington. And then, the current Secretary of Defense, Hegseth, it's just too jokey. It's too unserious. And he kind of radiates unseriousness. And that's a shame for him, for President Trump, and for the country.
It's one of those questions I always think about is, why does he keep him around? I mean, there's things like, well, he has to get another Secretary of Defense confirmed. That's not always that easy, but he does have a big majority in the Senate. He now, though, has made some big public mistakes. Trump has a pattern sometimes of wanting to control people. Is that part of it? Or why do you think he keeps him around?
Well, I think Trump doesn't worry about incompetence. He worries about loyalty. Mm-hmm. And loyalty is the first virtue. And in a situation like this, it's bad for the country. Mm-hmm. It is something that a president, thinking through the responsibilities of being president. I remember I asked Trump once, what's the job of the president? And he had a very good answer, which is to protect the people. Protecting the people, when you think about the Pentagon and the military and the Defense Department, you want to make sure it's competent. You want to make sure that it's not this kind of boys' club of grab rear ends. I mean, it's just, it isn't right. It doesn't serve Trump, doesn't serve the country, doesn't serve, I spent 5 years in the Navy, and I worked the last year in the Pentagon, and you learn about obligation, you learn about how important the task is, and that means serious, getting down to dealing with the business in the most careful and constructive and creative way, and I don't see any of that now.
You still talk to a number of people in the Pentagon. I mean, the thing about the Pentagon, State Department, other agencies in Washington like that is that people can serve in them for decades, right? There are people I know you still know who have worked for other secretaries of defense. I just outlined some of the people who were fired and quit. They were people Hegseth brought in for the most part. What do people you still talk to say about his leadership and how they're feeling about this moment?
Well, it goes to the commander-in-chief, and the commander-in-chief should put the obligation on his own shoulders to make sure there's somebody there. I'm going to go back to saying that Deputy President for War. War is the most serious undertaking that this country ever gets involved in. And I mean, this seems not serious. It seems too jokey, and it's in Trump's interest to have a very, very serious enterprise in that five-sided building, which is certainly one of the most complicated institutions in civilization anywhere.
On administrative leave. On Friday, we also learned that Joe Casper, Hegseth's own chief of staff, would be transferring to a different role in the Pentagon. And John Elliott, another senior Pentagon official, also said he resigned last week, although the Pentagon said they asked him to resign. So lots of firings, a bunch of resignations, apparently about leaks. So yeah, it kind of felt like something was coming. Well, lo and behold, late yesterday afternoon, the New York Times dropped a bombshell report about another Signal chat. The Times writes, quote, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth shared detailed information about forthcoming strikes in Yemen on March 15th in a private Signal group chat that included his wife, brother, and personal lawyer. Some of those people said that the information Hegseth shared on the Signal chat included the flight schedules for the F-A-18 Hornets targeting the Houthis in Yemen. Essentially the same attack plans that he shared on a separate Signal chat the same day that mistakenly included the editor of The Atlantic. Now, Hegseth's brother Phil does work at the Pentagon, although he is not anywhere near a role that directly involves military operations, and for good reason. As the AP reports, based on Phil Hegseth's publicly available resume, his past experience includes founding his own podcast production company and working on social media and podcasts at the Hudson Institute. That said, Phil the podcaster might have some kind of security clearance. We really don't know. As for Hegseth's wife, well, she has already been kind of a point of contention. You see, Jennifer Hegseth does not actually work for the Department of Defense, and yet we know that she has been sitting in on sensitive meetings. As the Wall Street Journal reported just last month, quote, one of the meetings, a high-level discussion, took place at a sensitive moment for the transatlantic alliance, one day after the U.S. said it had cut off military intelligence sharing with Ukraine. The group discussed the U.S. rationale behind that decision. The Pentagon has been asked in the past about whether Jennifer, a former Fox News producer, has a security clearance. I don't know why she would, but who knows. They have declined to answer the question, which is quite telling on its own. But here's the thing. Even if both Jennifer the wife and Phil the podcaster do have security clearances, there's no reason for the defense secretary to be texting them attack plans and details about a military operation. Because typically the people who have access to this type of information are categorized as need to know. And if you're in the need to know group, it means it's essential that you have the details of the operation or classified information in order to do your jobs. Meaning just because you have a certain level of security clearance, it doesn't mean you have access to every piece of information that is in that level of security clearance. It's if you really need to know it. Generally, that group does not include a liaison officer like Phil Hegseth, and it certainly does not include the secretary's spouse. So that story broke yesterday, and then Secretary Hegseth's day got, I would say, even worse. As I mentioned just a moment ago, his former aide, a guy by the name of John Elliott, one of the staffers who quit, published an op-ed in Politico describing his month from hell, as he describes it, working for Hegseth. Elliott writes that, quote, it's hard to see Hegseth remaining in his role for much longer, adding, quote, the last month has been a full-blown meltdown at the Pentagon, and it's becoming a real problem for the administration. Elliott also hinted at the secretary's week getting even worse, saying, quote, and this is quite a thing to write in an op-ed, there are very likely more shoes to drop in short order, with even bigger bombshell stories coming this week. Key Pentagon reporters have been telling sources privately. Who knows what will come? We'll see. But a former senior aide is predicting that. Now, just for some context, John Elliott is not at all some sort of undercover resistance crusader. He's the former Pentagon spokesperson, best known for a statement to ESPN defending the Pentagon's decision to wipe references to baseball legend Jackie Robinson's military service by saying, quote, DEI is dead at the Defense Department. It's that guy. He's also the one who took the lead in kicking a number of prominent media outlets, like the New York Times, the Washington Post, and CNN, out of their Pentagon workspaces. I mean, he's a dyed-in-the-wool MAGA guy. He probably still has his hat in his closet, or maybe he's wearing it on the weekend. I don't know. He's been with Donald Trump since the 2016 campaign. And he actually spends much of that op-ed, I quoted, lavishing praise on Trump's warped view of national security. But he draws the line at Pete Hegseth. And now at least one Republican congressman seems to share his view, saying out loud for the first time that Hegseth must go. And yet, all day long, the White House did what it always does, right before Donald Trump unceremoniously fires someone on social media. We see there's like a pattern here. They close ranks around the guy. The press secretary even took the time to deny a report that Hegseth was about to be fired. And they all just, of course, blame the media for reporting on what people inside the Pentagon told them.
This is what the media does. They take anonymous sources from disgruntled former employees, and then they try to slash and burn people and ruin their reputations.
It's just fake news. They just bring up stories. I guess it sounds like disgruntled employees.
This is what happens when the entire Pentagon is working against you and working against the monumental change that you are trying to implement.
The trumpet in that first few parts is quite something in the background. But that aside, I mean, the Pentagon is working against Pete Hegseth, like the entire Pentagon as an institution. Did the entire Pentagon as an institution type a signal text chain on the Secretary of Defense's personal phone that included detailed military operations and then force him to include his wife and brother? Because that would be quite a story. That would be a huge story. Of course, that's not what happened. And these are the same non-denial denials that Trump world always churns out when they know that a reporter has caught them red-handed, doing something they're not supposed to do. Sadly, we're kind of used to this by now. Seems like every day this administration is scrambling to clean up one mess or another mess. Because when it comes to staffing the government, Donald Trump isn't sending his best.
What did I say would happen? People would run out the door. Because, like, why would you want to be implicated in this? Right? Because at the very least, it makes your job difficult. You have to deal with this scandal. You have to deal with the BS. You already work in the military or you already work in high-level government. It's not an easy job. It's a stressful job. All of that. And working under Trump on a normal Trump day, probably a whole bunch of insanity. But now all of a sudden, it gets so bad that a Trump official is like, I'm just leaking stuff everywhere. And now at some point, whether you had anything to do with that or not, and likely not, because the whole point was that he was going rogue and doing this with random people. It wasn't following the proper chain of command. So it's likely the case that his secretary didn't know, this official didn't know, that official didn't know. That's the whole point of why this is so scandalous, because it wasn't following the proper channels. But, like, now you're complicit. You're not complicit in any alleged criminal activity, but you're complicit in the culture of irresponsibility. You have to say to yourself, if I work for this man or any of the other people that were, say, on the first Signal chat, how responsible will I be when the catastrophe happens? When he accidentally leaks it not to a journalist, but to a rival country. Or he leaks it to a reporter, but he leaks it to a reporter who sells it. Or he leaks it to a reporter that doesn't handle the classified information super carefully. Or whatever, right? And then it ends up in the wrong hands. And now somebody dies. A spy gets caught out. A military operation get exposed and they get ambushed, or an American ally no longer gives you support because they can't trust you, and because you didn't have that support, 6 months later and a botched thing happens because you didn't have that intelligence from France, Canada, Germany, whatever. How responsible will you feel? I'd be out the door.